It's 8 p.m. So CET, welcome to the 119th edition of AirHacks TV. And I already got some really interesting questions in the chat. So the first one from Benjamin. Benjamin asked me, what do you recommend for Quarkus authentication for a single page app? Already have used Postgres database. Have users in the Postgres database. Okay, so I didn't read the last part. So if you regarding security, there's only one way to go. This is OAuth OpenID Connect, and it is called, I think, authorization code grant with PKCE proof key of code challenge or something like this. This is code in challenge, and how it works is that the client creates a secret key, signs the message, and then validates again what it gets back with the key, and this is the technical part. If you have already users in the Postgres database, the question is, have they remain in your Postgres database? Because if you are in the cloud, it will be user pool on Cognito. If you are on Keycloak, it is also the user realm, and this could be Postgres because Keycloak is accessing the user database via Hibernate or JDBC. And what you could also do, you could expose, I think it's called user info endpoint, OpenID Connect or OIDC. And what the endpoint is doing, it will provide you more information about the user. Okay, but if the user are in the Postgres database, maybe you mean authorization. So what you need is the roles and all the stuff. So yeah. So the question is, the nicest way to do is to use OpenID Connect. If you have the users in Postgres database, the question is how you can migrate them somewhere else, and for instance maintain the users via SDK of your application. Okay, now the next one, proof key of code exchange. This is exactly this. Boyan is absolutely right. Proof key of code exchange. PKCE, sorry, Boyan, I was not prepared for the question, so this was a spontaneous one. I forgot what it means. And this PKCE is the way to go. This implicit flow is almost deprecated. I think the only remaining flow is the authorization code grant, and anything else is more or less deprecated. Okay. Benjamin, I hope you are happy. RPX asked me, isn't OpenLiberty with OpenG9 and Instant On a good competitor for Quarkus? I don't think so, because Quarkus is not interesting because of GraalVM I would say OpenG9 and Instant On and Cryo is a good competitor maybe for GraalVM. And OpenLiberty works differently to Quarkus. I would say it is also highly optimized, but not as optimized as Quarkus. So what Quarkus does, Quarkus deploys the application at build time and therefore eliminates reflection at runtime, and it reads all the configuration, generates simple bytecode, so it reduces memory footprint, and decreases startup time. So, and this is not, OpenLiberty is not doing that. But with OpenG9, Cryo, and OpenLiberty is still crazy fast, but I'm using Quarkus without GraalVM, and this is fast enough. And also, if you are using GraalVM, you have to care about the native image, security, patches, and so forth. But if you're using plain Java, and you use serverless on Azure or AWS, the cloud providers are patching the JDK for you. So this is the comparison. Okay, Grimly, where Grimly was also there. I found him somewhere. Okay. Now the first question is, regarding Wasm. And this is Grimly, and he asked me, pick my attention again. And one of the key features is ability to limit a module to module external endpoint. So what I understand is that he would like to isolate the environment. Follow up from Benjamin, and the chat has priority. But isn't OIDC very complex? It is not complex, I would say. It is not. I would say not complex at all. We only have to use it, we don't have to. We don't have to implement that, right? So this is implementation could be complex, but the usage, it is the matter of redirect and setup. I would say. Okay, Keycloak. So I don't run Keycloak a lot because if Keycloak is already on premise in the clouds, I use Cognito and it already ships with OpenID Connect. And regarding complexity, what I did last year, I enhanced Smorai OIDC, Smorai JWT. So with 2 or 3 Quarkus properties, you have working authentication with application load balancer ALB, for instance. I know what you mean. So I wouldn't say that this is complex, because if you take a look at the configuration, it is minimal. I would say it is hard to debug, right? This is what I will say, because if you start, if you do something wrong, you get, maybe cryptic message, but the tools provider getting better and better. So there is a Okta as a tool provider. There is Auth 0, I think, and there is also I use the serverless options like Cognito, or in Asia it is the director of service, which can be also exposed as OpenID Connect. So yeah. And running Keycloak on premise is, if you're in charge of it, is a bad idea, because you will have to patch Keycloak. If Keycloak is already patched by Red Hat or is run by a different department, then it is a good idea. So and Keycloak is, I would say, is really good. So RPX asked me a question related to Eclipse Store. So interesting, because Eclipse Store is a Microstream project, and they are really nice guys. It is good to use a cluster solution with Whitefly HR cluster and a CDI singleton bean for the store, that data root, and a sync of the singleton with Delta Spike MVCC. Okay, a sync with Delta Spike data, I think what you mean, right? So what Eclipse Store is crazy fast. So first, what is Microstream? Microstream is the implementation of Eclipse Store, and Eclipse Store is the spec, more or less. So and the Eclipse Store. So, and there are 2 parts: is the serializer and the persistence, and the serializer is secure one and fast one. And the persistor, it persists the serialized objects in a file, basically. And now the question is how to replicate the file. So that's the basic question. And whatever you replicate, you get the ACID versus base, basic availability of state, eventual consistency, or atomicity, consistency, isolation level, and durability. So you have the choice. You wait until it's synced or replicated, or you are replicating asynchronously. So I would say the best possible choice for Microstream or Eclipse Store would be you store this, let's say, for instance, to S3, and S3 replicates the data for you. If you don't have S3, you have maybe the on-premise, forgot the name. There is an S3, a service with S3 compatible API, but runs well on Kubernetes, and with that it will replicate the data behind the scenes for you. But by the way, this is also the future of the future of databases, cloud-native databases. It is the division or the decoupling of the storage from compute. So the storage is replicated and the compute, let's say AWS Aurora, there is Postgres engine on Amazon, replication, or if you're interested in Neon database, also interesting. So strong consistency needed. So then I would say if strong consistency is needed, forget the replication. So you have to do something different, because if you replicate, you have to block, and it never worked actually in the past, right? MinIO, exactly. This MinIO, is this what I meant? MinIO is the open source solution with this S3 compatible. But still, if you use MinIO, the question is what Kubernetes does behind the scenes with MinIO, right? Okay, and this is recurring question since the beginning of AirHacks TV. What about clusters? Do you have experience with AWS Event Bridge? Actually, I used that yesterday with Quarkus deployed as Lambda. Yes. And is this way to go if I have microservice in the cloud, or should I use Kinesis for async messages? Boyan, I think you attended the AirHacks Live workshops, because we did it there, or at least I mentioned this. But Event Bridge can be used to as even to communication between microservices, between accounts, and the only limitation of Event Bridge is that you have to send JSON messages back and forth. And in Kinesis, you can send whatever you like. Kinesis is more like Kafka, and Event Bridge is, how to call it, maybe a very lightweight and very pragmatic ESB. So this would be like event router. So you can easily route events, but I mean really easy, right? So you can say all events coming from my Quarkus app should be routed to this app, something like this, right? And and this is cheap, relatively cheap, and but it's not as scalable, not as fast as Kinesis. When to use AWS Kinesis and AWS Event Bridge? So Kinesis is similar to Kafka, and AWS Event Bridge is a little bit different. AWS Event Bridge is first deeply integrated to the AWS ecosystem. So whatever you have there, all managed services are usually exposing events to Event Bridge. For instance, if you upload a file to S3, it is relatively easy to see this in Event Bridge, but it is not directly possible with Kinesis. So if you that's the difference. So if you have, let's say, you have objects and you're interested in the history of the messages, objects of the events. So this is more Kinesis. If you would like to send and route data between services and especially between accounts, then I will pick Event Bridge. And cost-wise, if you send small messages and not that many, Event Bridge should be cheaper or more cost-effective. Okay, but now back to a poor Grimly. Here I started, to read the question and then was interrupted by the nice chat. So what Grimly would like to know is, my understanding of the question is that how to isolate something. You would run to Java project, a Java class in a jar, and should be isolated and secure. So in Java, how to do that? What you are describing, it should be a Java module. So this is, I think, Java 9 module. So you can specify which dependencies are allowed and which are not allowed. But at runtime, the question is, if I'm in module, I still have access to system exit, right? So I would like to prevent that someone calls system exit. What you can still do, you can set up so-called security manager. They're going to be deprecated, but you could set up the security manager right now. It's not deprecated yet. And then say, okay, I'm not allowing that the application invokes system exit. So this is less interesting now than back then, because now the trends goes to shorter-lived objects or shorter-lived apps, maybe like serverless. They live for a view invocation, then they are dead. So and system exit will kill the application, which is not a big deal, right? So, but security manager would prevent that. Okay, and so this is what we. And if you need even more control, take a look at OSGI. So I usually try to not to use it, because in my enterprise project there is not. They are too boring for OSGI, but what you are describing now, this is jar is like OSGI module. You could load it, so it will fit really well with OSGI, and a really cool technology. Hopefully I find it, and now it's called GraalVM Isolate. And take a look at the isolates. I think this is what you're searching for. So what the isolates are, hopefully is this the one? So you get back an isolated process, more or less. So this is what I'm asking for. But it's not about jar, more about execution model. So if you would like to build a Java cloud from scratch, this could be interesting. And this is the native. Yeah, I think this is in GraalVM Isolate. Hopefully there are not multiple one, but this I think is the one I mean here. Okay, so this was a long story short. And where is my? Yeah. I hope I answered your question. Yeah, the Java fast, and this is actually what I think Oracle is doing with GraalVM and isolates. So if you like, try it out. Check out Oracle Cloud, and they have the Oracle functions, I think, and they are built like this. So interesting question from Krizu, also a friend of the show. And he asked me, what do you recommend for running a Java program as a Windows service? This is why we have Java as a Windows service in the title. And now, let's see whether I find this. That's not that. Also not. This is they are different. This one. So there is a service, and this is called Tanuki. And the question is, no, why I'm talking about Tanuki? It also looks a little bit strange. And the reason being is because I found that back then in Glassfish. So if you go to Glassfish and you look at the batch files, the run as a service in Glassfish was implemented by the Tanuki wrapper, and it worked well on my on Windows machine from my clients. So this is what I have experience with, and it run in production for a long time. And if you download Glassfish, maybe even Payara, and you search for Tanuki, you will find batch files with the Tanuki service wrapper. So this is what I can recommend you. And maybe it even works now, but this is a longer time ago. So right, so I don't have experience right now, but it was used in production. And this looks a little bit strange, the homepage, but this is, most of Windows software looks like that, right? So, okay, it was fun. Okay, next one from Grimly again, hyperactive, also in Discord channel, and this is a good one. So Grimly would like to extend records to be more powerful. So now Grimly, I tell you a story, and the next question is. RPX asked me, so from the chat, so you would recommend Quarkus more than staying on Java E? Then I need to get rid of all the EJB stuff, I think. To get rid of the EJB stuff is easier than you think, because if you have stateless, you can replace on Quarkus with request scoped, and you have transactions, request scoped, and transactional, and you are basically done. So it is just working. So if you have remote EJBs or whatever, this is harder, but you will have to get rid of remote EJBs because of serialization, security issues, and other problems. Anyway, so I would say you could do this. And I don't think whether I will recommend to migrate to Quarkus. What I know, that even, I know some Open Liberty developers who switch from Open Liberty to Quarkus internally, and they're happy, right? So this is what I can tell you. So I would say so my subjective opinion is Quarkus is a little bit, or Quarkus is more future-proof than OpenLiberty. So everyone talks about Quarkus right now, and in all my projects I see Quarkus. So this is a message to you. But OpenLiberty is one of the best application servers I know. Java EE, Jakarta EE application servers. It's very fast and it's just great. So there is no reason to move from OpenLiberty to Quarkus to gain, 10 milliseconds or whatever. So it doesn't matter, basically. Okay. Now, but Grimley asked me, basically, he would like to have name parameters, how to do this. So first, name parameters are in Java already there, at least for reflection. So with reflection, you get the name of the method parameters, but this something else is meant here. This is more like JavaScript. But the question is, how to do this? So now, this is I mean, if you spend time thinking about this, and you really would like to contribute, it may even happen, Grimley. So first, I guess you are a young and energetic developer, and this is what this is highly welcome in the OpenJDK mailing lists. So I tried to find. Wait a second. This is maybe somewhere. So this is the step 2. The step 1 is, I would say, get involved in mail.openjdk.org. There are multiple lists, and just introduce yourself. This is what I would do. Say, hey, I'm a young Java enthusiast. I really like Java, and I have some ideas I would really like to contribute. So this will be step number 1. Maybe something happens, maybe not. No, sorry. It will. Something will happen. You get a friendly answer. And if you are lucky, after a few iterations, very lucky, you could propose your own JEP. This would be this. And this is very formal. Why Java is so formal? Yeah, because Java runs on, in major enterprises, and they don't like to break things. So this would be a disaster. So they are very cautious with extensions. They always try to be backward compatible. And so you can propose your own JEP. What I did, I don't know, 20 years ago, I proposed my own JSR, or a similar story. I think it was, wait a sec, JCP, but I have to withdraw it. I think it was 194. No. Client-side container, this is how I call it. 193. So as you can see, I proposed that, and but for political reasons, it was no more. It was 2002, so crazy. 22 years ago, and I mean, I spent some time and they proposed a draft. And then get a call and say, look, for political reasons, it won't work. But you could do the same with the JEP. So this is Java specification requests, and JEP is Java enhancement proposal for JDK. So I was more about new API, and you are about language, but it's the same thing. So where I'm going with it is, it may actually work in your case. It's not like so. Okay, so we discussed that and the JEP. So, but what will happen? The software, the Java engineers, they are crazy good, really. And now a story. So, I used EJBs a lot, so like RPX, and I liked EJBs, and I had lots of ideas how to improve them. And I forgot my ideas, but there was a really bright woman. She was the spec lead called Marina Vatkina. And by the way, if you know her, Pink, I would like to invite her to my podcast. Marina Vatkina, she was the spec lead for EJBs. So at a Java 1 conference, I went to her and said, hey, look, I have the ideas here. And she looked at me and said, hey, cool, but if you do this, we will break this and this and this and this and this and this, and therefore it won't work, right? So this was like in 2 minutes explanation why the idea is good, but it would be no backward compatible. And something like this could also happen because your idea, Grimly, is like, on the higher level, but it has influence on the bytecode. And, Brian Götz and the others will say, if you do this, we'll break this and this and this and this and this. But if you stay tuned, maybe you can participate in OpenJDK and become, OpenJDK committer, which could be actually great for your, professional career or whatever. So, do you know anyone using Eclipse Store in production? You think it can replace relational DB? It looks so tempting. Everything can replace relational DB, by the way. For instance, so this is a really interesting question from RPX. Whether something like Microstream can replace relational database. Not for fun, but in cloud we have different problems. And one of the problems is that relational databases are difficult to run, complex to manage, but I really mean complex. So if I use, for instance, right now I'm using, before the show, I use DynamoDB. So to create a DynamoDB table is like a matter of 2 minutes, of 30 seconds actually, and I get a table which is replicated and I have backup and everything is set up. To have a Postgres in the cloud, if you do it right with backup and failover and tests, you will spend at least, I would say, 2 days or even 3 with all the tests. And just to set it up, so hello world, Postgres, I would say will take maybe 1 hour, 2 hours, but it's not as easy as, and the costs for low volume applications are orders of magnitude higher. And now you have to re-ask the question, would you rather play, 3 days with Postgres, or instead of using convenient and nice JPA, you use, Microstream is nice, but use, for instance, an hash map based, data access to DynamoDB or 3. This is what I'm using. It doesn't, fit as my comparison to because Microstream is nicer to use than S3 or DynamoDB, but still in my project we're using S3 and DynamoDB because this is easier to operate and it's cheaper. So this is the only reason. So, and with Microstream fits your requirements, you can absolutely go for it. The question is where you will store the blob, right? I would start with S3, for instance, in the cloud. Okay. Yeah, and the cluster ready is always the problem. Even if you have Postgres, you get, the failover problem with 5 minutes offline with the DNS. So, this is always the challenge, except you have something like DynamoDB or S3. So, okay. Now, this was long story short with extension with record. And Krizu asked me again, are the tools to generate architecture diagrams from your code? Have you some across, this was one, Structurizer. So I can tell you what I use or what I know. So one of the most popular, I don't actually know why, but it's very popular, is called Draw.io. So if you go to Draw.io, you get redirected here. And this is when you see, all the AWS diagrams, they are actually drawn with that. It is less about, you have to draw it from scratch. So that's all. Draw.io, let's take a look at Magic Draw. This is what I used in the past. And Magic Draw is actually nice and is able to reverse engineer your Java code. So you will see your packages and your Java classes. And it is like importing. And it worked really well. So this is now a different company is using, but I use Magic Draw and actually it worked, but it was 10 years ago or even longer. This one. Then Pummel or Plant.uml is the homepage. This is open source. The page looks not really nice, but it's also used a lot. I saw this in the wild. I didn't use it by myself, but had to use the diagrams. Then YAML or YUML is a modern take on UML, and it looks actually nice, but it is not reverse engineering. You are defining, the things in text, the things, the nodes, the charts in text with text. Then Lucid is somehow interesting, because what Lucid Charts is able to do is to, for instance, reverse engineer your cloud environments, and this basically was. So now the question is, and this is in the title. Yeah, it is Uncanny Valley. What Uncanny Valley means usually is, the movie Polar Express, that if you try to be too perfect, but not, if you don't achieve the perfection, but you are less than perfect, it looks strange. So it is better to look like a comic creature than almost like a human, because it looks scary, right? So this is the Uncanny Valley. So if we shot before we reach the perfection, it doesn't work. We have to really achieve the perfection, right? So, and what I meant by that is, the problem I had with all the tools is, if I reverse engineer my Java code, I get all the classes and all the packages, and only 10% were interesting. So now it's a little bit different, because you need a far less Java classes, but still, I was busy removing unnecessary detail, because you have the entire information of the code base in the diagram is not really helpful. So I think, and then if someone reads the Java class names in the class diagrams and package names in the package diagrams, it might. So the problem is how to keep it current, right? So the expectation is there, it is current, and the class names are right and the package names are right, and after a few iterations in the code, they are no more right. So I think it is better just just to draw the concepts with boxes, regardless whether there is one-to-one mapping to a Java class or not, right? So I did it actually today. I picked Droyo and say, okay, look, there is a Quarkus with JAX-RS. We can store stuff in DynamoDB. We have changed data capture. Another Lambda, picks the event and does something with it. So we're just boxes. But actually, there was JAX-RS Quarkus, but there was the AWS Lambda was just the boundary, and the controls and entities, they were not in the diagram because they don't matter, right? So I wanted just to express we have two Lambdas in one Maven module, and one is synchronous and the other one is asynchronous, for instance. Okay, so that's all. Okay, and one question from our Discord channel, and I had a podcast with the Helidon about security and secrets, and we had a chat in Discord, and I say people tend to feel comfortable with some cloud-provided vaults that gives you advanced variables that I believe is quite promiscuous, as anybody can issue an env command and see them all. So, and this is interesting. So the question is how we deal with secrets. So, and this was the discussion on Discord, and this is interesting because I had to use the cloud because of the opposite. So if you go to AWS, for instance, and you would really like to have, or Azure, it doesn't matter, these services are very similar, but currently I'm working on AWS, so it's easier to give you examples. And so you can use System Manager Parameter Store, which is almost free. So but still, the secrets are guarded by permission, so you cannot just someone just access your secrets. But if you would like to be more secure, you can use the secret manager. And what's the difference? So the secret manager, it has a process around your secrets. So you cannot just delete the secret, it gets deactivated, for instance. You have the permissions, you can exactly say who can access the secret or not. But from Quarkus perspective, it always looks the same. There are environment entries, the environment entries are injected, and you are basically done, right? And on premise, you would use something like Vault, for instance, HashiCorp. The problem is you have to manage Vault by yourself. Okay. Now, AWS CodeArtifact. So Bojan Brunen asked me, is what to use. I don't have any own infrastructure on Open. I had Maven Artifact repo like this. Here something else is my Maven Artifact repo. I'm using AWS CodeArtifact. What CodeArtifact is, it is basically Nexus on AWS Cloud. You can push and pull from CodeArtifact. What's a little bit harder is to have public repository with this is but CodeArtifact works really good, is well integrated to Maven, is cheap. So I'm using CodeArtifact also to speed up the build process, because you can cache your stuff in CodeArtifact. So thank you, Bojan. But yeah. Okay, now Time Machine. And so interesting, because the 2015 we got a very similar questions. So practices for securing third-party API credentials. So the answer right now is classic, right? You know this? Yeah, OAuth and OpenID Connect. Is it really needed for a professional Java developer to read a whole book on IDEs? Interesting, right? So I would say no. It is not required to read a book on IDEs. I don't think there are books about Visual Studio Code, right? So really interesting. But I think it is nice to constantly improve your skills with the IDE, right? So this is and by the way, the question is already 9 years old, so I can a little bit negatively answer this. So if someone asks me, is it really needed to read a book about software engineering? So my answer is always, why not, right? So the only problem you may get is you can say, okay, I have 5 books, but I really only have time to read one. So which one to pick? But if you have time, just read it. I mean, I never, read a book and regretted that, I don't know, I didn't learn anything. And by the way, I recently bought even a Java fundamentals book, because I would say I'm curious whether, what I don't know, just for fun. Because such books are actually good to read. Is a good read, because if you know Java, you can read really fast, and you only spot, things which are, it is interesting. There's a different take on this. What I think, right? So, or a beginner to spend so much time to understand IDE rather than focusing on language. And by the way, this is the reason why I really like NetBeans, for instance. There was a Control Space and Alt Enter, and you can achieve everything. Still like NetBeans, and Visual Studio Code is very similar. It is, in my case, I think Command Space, a similar effect the Control Space on NetBeans, and yeah. And someone asked, can be something 6.4 times more productive than Java E? I think even being 10% more productive than pragmatic Java E is hard, right? So I don't think the productivity can be solved with. If framework is pragmatic, I would say. I think it was in CERN on a conference. So I created an AWS Lambda with Quarkus, and then towards the end I told it is actually Java E code, and everyone was stunned. Like, whoa, Java E, yeah. So yeah, but I mean, why not? Which book did you buy? Which do you like most of Java books? It's hard to tell, and I forgot actually what I bought, because it's on my I just buy to have a constant pressure to read. But it was an unusual book. Maybe the next AirHacks TV I will show you this. It was a thick, nice book. I didn't know the author, and it was like Java fundamentals. And I look into the book, and it had great content. So it was unexpected actually. It was not. This is why I bought it. Okay, Bojan also asked me CDK versus Serverless Framework recommendations, pros and cons. I use CDK all the time with Java and Serverless Framework. I don't know, is it SAM, I think? What do you mean? Or it gives a Serverless Framework, which is third-party framework. So I try to stick with the ecosystem, and CDK is more straight, and SAM is like Serverless Application Model, I think it's called. It's more like additional step. So it generates CloudFormation. This is like macro for CloudFormation. macro for CloudFormation, and CDK is more direct, and I use CDK with Java is just great, especially with CodeArtifact. Exactly, Sam. With CodeArtifact, what you can do is you can have reusable cloud jars, push them to CodeArtifact, and another developer pulls them and just says, new airhacks show with ALB and 2 CPUs and Lambda build go, and you are ready, right? So then you can achieve really good productivity. And I don't know whether you are aware, Boyan, but on my recent Quarkus CDK plain project, I created a small builder around that to make it a little bit nicer, mainly just for conferences because it looks nicer. So you can take a look on that. So my opinion didn't change for last 20 years maybe. So you see what I did back then. I remember this client-side container. It was a project which wanted to have some proprietary solutions. Like before I do some proprietary stuff, we will try to find a standard. If there's no standard, I will propose one. And so if you stick with standards, you have more vacations because you don't have, they are usually more stable. This is, you see, all the questions regarding Java EE are 10 years old and still working. Victor and Thea, yeah, why not? We can ask him. Release procedure for CDK artifacts. I don't know what you mean for CDK artifacts. How to test your own reusable pieces. This is maybe what you mean. What I do, I have additional accounts where I test it, and if this is working, I use it on my clients. For my clients, this is what I'm doing. Maven release plugin? No. I don't know what you mean right now. So if we release, for instance, software, we put it to a S3 bucket, and the key is versioned. The object is versioned. And this is what we use for release, because in the pipeline, we can just copy over the executable CDK jar, run the CDK Java-jar CDK infrastructure jar, and we have the infrastructure. This is what we do. Yeah, S3 with versioning enabled is great. Just works perfectly. Okay. How to implement authentication applications. So less common now. Is this OpenID Connect is the authentication. This is for instance, Quarkus, you can use OpenID Connect on premise. In the cloud, OpenID Connect is not a plugin of Quarkus anymore. I use small JSON Web Token, and the authentication happens in application load balancer, HTTP gateway, or somewhere else. So resource bundle injection in Java EE. So maybe, still interesting, right? This is how to have internationalization. So I would say, I don't think we could use, interesting point, right? Resource bundles are lesser used, I would say. And why that? Because in backend we have JAX-OS and no more JSF. So there is less stuff to internationalize. Okay. Done. What are Java Beans, Enterprise Java Beans, Managed Beans, and Backing Beans? By the way, I think Enterprise Java Beans, Managed Beans, and are just... It's a good point because this is a POJOS decorated with interceptors, more or less. So this is Enterprise Java Beans. This was the entire trick that they introduced aspect-oriented programming, because before AOP was a thing, and logging, pooling, monitoring was implemented before, very like AWS Lambda actually, or Azure Function, the same idea. And Java Beans was component model. You have getter, setter, and attribute. So now it's no more that needed. And why we needed Java Beans for IDEs actually, that they could create nicer UIs. And backing beans are almost dead. They are just for JSF. This is the presentation data for JSF. Also interesting, right? Staging Java EE application with Docker. So it's this common topic because regardless we have Java EE or Quarkus, you build once and then you just ship your Docker image or your bytecode through the stages. So this is now what happens. And encapsulation violation with or without DTOs. So DTOs are lesser used. They are they are going to be killed by Java records, and no one will call Java record DTO anymore. And with Java records, it's also nice, to have a Java record and use instance of deconstruction to pick, the interesting pieces. So this is available in Java 21. And test-driven development. I'm actually a friend of TDD for system tests, not unit tests. Unit tests are less important than a few years ago. So in distributed application, I start with system tests or write a system test in parallel to the usual test and to the usual in parallel to the service. This is what I wanted to express. So on system test in parallel to the service, and the service and the system test calls the service. And I use microprofile REST client because the system tests are highly reusable. Okay. Now, Chris asked me, I am switching to AWS Identity Center for my project, and I like it a lot. Any better experience with someone who's doing a migration from IAM to Identity Center with Google provider? Never use Google provider. I used the IAM Identity Center, which was AWS SSO before. I think they rename it. I always use with the built-in provider, and but it worked well. My clients use not Google provider, identity provider. They use their own OAuth provider, and it worked, right? It worked well. So this is also a proven solution. So in my smaller projects, we use the built-in user management, and it works really good. Having said that, it was a great show. So thank you. This time I spoken to the audience. The last time I was alone because the stream didn't start it. So the first 15 minutes. So I would say thank you. And by the way, forgot to mention, the podcast is getting more and more interesting. So I have interesting episodes with Jose of Oracle. So we have almost fights. So we'll see in the upcoming episode about interfaces, and it was interesting conversation with him. And there are some workshops around the corner. And by the way, in summer. But the persistence patterns, this is actually, we cover also stuff like, maybe even Microstream. So I could just pick Microstream and relational databases, and just briefly, why not in the cloud? And we'll focus on DynamoDB, S3, and serverless storage, and of course a little bit AI, how to use it in the cloud. So I think we covered everything. Yeah. So thank you a lot, and I would say see you almost in autumn, right? In March. It's crazy. So what we can do. Thank you. Bye.